Hello everyone. So today I will share the topic of why the international environment become unfriendly to China. Okay, by the way, during the sharing, you can do the sightseeing of a shopping center which located in Shanghai, China. I take the videos for you to do the sightseeing during my sharing. You can have a look of the sightseeing. Okay, now let's begin our topic of why has the international environment become unfriendly to China. Is it because the US and Western countries are targeting us? Don't worry, it's not that simple. Let's take it step by step. Recently, an economist named Zhang Wenying wrote an interesting article that can help us understand the current international situation. Let's see what he has to say. Zhang Weiying points out that China's rapid development over the past 40 years mainly rely on three things: marketization, entrepreneurial spirit, and technology accumulated by the West over 300 years. It's not what we often hear about the China model. This perspective might seem counterintuitive, right? He believes that emphasizing the unique China model too much might backfire. How so? There are two main aspects. First, it might mislead us internally. Constantly stressing the China model could lead us down the path of strengthening state-owned enterprises, expanding government power, and relying heavily on industrial policies. This could ultimately negate the achievements of the reform and opening up, causing the economy to stagnate. We are already seeing signs of this in some areas. For example, some local governments are being asked to convert completed real estate projects into public housing, which is a way of reinforcing state enterprises. The outcome is unlikely to be good. Second, it could mislead the world and lead to confrontation. Some domestic and foreign economists misunderstand China's achievements over the past 40 years, thinking we are practicing state capitalism. This brings to mind the policies of certain countries during World War II. The results of those policies are well known. Therefore, people are wary, thinking this approach is incompatible with fair trade and world peace. Take new energy vehicles as an example. Europe believes that the Chinese government is heavily subsidizing and supporting them. It's one thing to play domestically, but selling in Europe, no way. European companies don't receive such subsidies, so why should they compete against a state-backed entity? Thus, tariffs are imposed to protect local businesses. Recently, the EU has been considering high tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. Zhang Wenying said that we need to understand the world correctly from three aspects. First, understand the interests and value in international relations. In the past, we often thought that countries only had interests, not permanent friends, only permanent interests. But now it's different. Values matters too. Just like in personal relationships, people with different values can't get along well. For example, the US-Egypt relationship, although Mubarak's government was authoritarian, the US had good relations with him because their interests aligned in maintaining peace in the Middle East. But during the Egyptian revolution, the US supported the revolutionaries because of shared values. This shows that sometimes values are more important than more interests. Similarly, with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, from a purely interest-based perspective, the US could have ignored it or even divided the benefits with Russia. But look at the US and EU's stance. They say Russia cannot win because of the value conflict. They call it fighting for tomorrow, for freedom and democracy. In contrast, China and India's relationship with Russia is more interest-driven. India imports a lot of oil from Russia, and their trade volume is growing rapidly. India doesn't condemn Russia or strongly support Ukraine. It just wants to make more money. Second, understand Western values. There are three main points: human rights, racial equality, and helping the less developed. The last point is interesting. Developed and developing countries have different conditions for joining international organizations. When China joined the WTO, it enjoyed many favorable conditions. This is part of a post-World War II idea to help less developed countries. Third, understand the Western perspective on peace. They believe trade, democracy, and international organizations are the three pillars of world peace. Where goods can freely circulate, armed won't march. Armies won't march. This is lesson from 3 years of history. So, how did China develop in the past 40 years? Zhang Weiying says it was similar to UK, France, Germany, Japan, and Asian tigers, mainly through market forces and entrepreneurship. We also leveraged 300 years of technological accumulation from Western countries, standing on the shoulders of giants. He gives an interesting example. Professor Zhou Qiren observed that the same farmer, when working on collective land, would be lazy, but on his own land, he would work hard. Doesn't this illustrate the power of the market? When people have freedom, their creativity is unleashed. Why do some people misunderstand China's development model? There's an interesting phenomenon called hindsight bias. When something succeeds, people find various reasons to explain why it succeeds. For instance, some people see China's rapid development and think it must be due to a strong government, large state-owned enterprises, and effective industrial policies. This seems logical, right? But the problem is the explanation overlooks the role of market-oriented reforms and entrepreneurial spirit. If it were really about government and state-owned enterprises, why couldn't we develop before the reform and opening up? The government was even stronger and there were more state-owned enterprises back then. So this China model theory is actually reversing cause and effects. Zhang Weiying gives a vivid example. If you see someone running very fast, but they are missing an arm, you wouldn't say, "Oh, losing an arm makes you run faster." That would be ridiculous. Similarly, we can say China's economic success is because of a strong government and large state-owned enterprises. That's reversing cause and effect. Why does this misunderstanding arise? Okay, one key reason is that many people don't understand the true history of China's reform and opening up. China's development has been a process of trial and error, constant adjustment. Deng Xiaoping's idea of crossing the river by feeling the stones encapsulate this. For example, at the beginning, we allowed some people to get rich first. Later, we promoted the slogan, "State retreats, private sector advances," to encourage private economic development. Then we emphasized two unwavering principles: to consolidate and develop the public sector and encourage, support, and guide the non-public sector. See, this is not a static model. It's a process of constant adjustment and improvement. But some people only see the results, not the process, and think China has always operated this way. This leads to misunderstanding. We shouldn't elevate all conflicts to the level of hostile relations. Normal competition is acceptable. Hu Xijin is right. We shouldn't see every conflict as the hostile act. For instance, on climate issues, we need cooperation, but in business and technology, we can compete. This kind of healthy competition is beneficial for human development. If there's no competition, those leading countries might lose the motivation to progress. It's the pursuit of challenges that keeps them running ahead. This kind of catch-up game is actually beneficial for human development, but this competition needs to be managed well to avoid turning into an arms race or Cold War. Regarding the international environment, indeed, it's more complex now than before. However, we can blame all problems on the external environment. We should also look within. For instance, we are too aggressive on the international stage. Do our words sometimes make others feel threatened? These are worth reflecting on. Moreover, is there an issue with our external propaganda? Sometimes we emphasize our uniqueness too much, making others feel we are hard to get along with. We could emphasize our commonalities with other countries, like our shared desire for peaceful development and better living standards for our people. This approach might be more acceptable. Finally, I think the unfriendly international environment towards China is not mainly because foreigners misunderstand us. The key is how we view the problem ourselves. We can't always emphasize external factors, otherwise we might follow Russia's path. Look at Russia now. It's isolated. It believes it's because of NATO's eastward expansion and Western suppression, but in reality, it's mainly its own doing. By invading Ukraine, it scared neighboring countries. Yet, instead of reflecting on itself, it blames others. This is called a self-fulfilling prophecy, and in the end, the whole world indeed turned against it. We should learn from this and continue on the path of peaceful development in the current international environment. We need to have a correct understanding of ourselves, knowing our strengths and weaknesses and potential. We are in the immediate stage needing to deal with both developed countries and developing countries, ones like those in Africa. This requires wisdom and seeking common ground while preserving differences. In summary, we shouldn't view normal businesses or technological competition as hostile. If managed well, this competition is beneficial to humanity, but we must be cautious to prevent competition from escalating into confrontation. Lastly, no matter how the international environment changes, we must maintain an open attitude. Isolation is not an option. History has taught us this lesson too well. We need to continue learn advanced technologies, absorbing beneficial experiences, and actively integrating into the international community, contributing to global development. What do you think? Is China's development based on the unique China model or a universal development path? How should we deal with current international environment? Feel free to leave your comments and let's discuss it together. Remember, we need to view issues rationally and analyze them objectively to find the right direction. Only then can we find our place in this complex world and continue our path. That's all for today's topic and today's share. See you next time. Bye-bye.